beautiful friends. Happy Empowered Wednesday. As you know, every week we get together. I get a chance to talk to some of my friends and my clients, and we really talk about being mindful. When it comes to showing up fully in your business, we share strategies that are working in personal life and also some strategies that are working from a business side to help you bring more balance and more harmony into your life. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we have a very special guest today, a friend of mine, Angela Tait. She will be sharing some of her strategies she leverages to really find more balance in her business and her life as a very busy mom. She is an HR expert, a published author, and also a speaker. And I cannot wait to have her join, and I'm just waiting for her. So, all right. I am ready for you. And amazing. I see you're coming on. So just let's give it a second. And yes, there you are. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Really, really good. It's been a busy couple of days. I'm working with some of our clients on really elevating their personal brand, and that meant there is a lot of photo shoots happening with one of my favorite friends who's just really, really talented. And I ran, that's how, you can hear it in my voice. I'm like, I was running to get back on time.
Yes.
So, thank you so much.
Are you able to see me okay? I haven't done a live in a very long time.
Yes.
So I want to make sure
Yes.
you're able to hear me and
Yeah,
see me.
I
Okay.
can see you. I can hear you. And I would say just always watch. Sometimes Instagram will try and cut the top of your head a little bit. So just watch for that. You look beautiful as always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So do you. And I love the red gloss. I feel like red is such a power color and you wear it so well.
Thank you. Yeah, I needed a little pick-me-up today. It's a rainy, gray, one of those Wednesdays, but in my head, it's always pink. It's always empowering or a little red. So thank you. And thank you so much for saying yes to our conversation today, because I know you have lots of going on and we'll be talking about all of it. But you just recently launched your mommy podcast, and you'll tell us all about it. And it's crazy because you launched it on 11/11, and today we're meeting, it's 11, right, of December, and we started at 11 a.m.
Yes. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I feel like there's something magical about the number 11, isn't there?
Me too. Me too. So please, if you can take a moment and introduce yourself, Angela, and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm Angela Tait. I am a mompreneur. As Isabel mentioned, I have a podcast I recently launched called Mommy, and that's for the working mom. So if you are a working mother, I'd love to have you as a guest on the show. Please reach out after and we can talk further about that. I'm an author. I did a collaborative book this year, and I'll be launching my own book at the beginning of 2025 on the human capital strategies for leaders. And I'd love for you to all join in on that journey. And I also help entrepreneurs, small business owners, leaders be in their zone of genius, really focus on their strengths by hiring top talent, helping train staff. And then I help with business coaching when it comes to the talent acquisition, talent management needs of the organization. So that's a bit about me. I did, get my master's of science in organization development from Pepperdine. I'm not sure if you've heard, but there are some fires going on in Malibu right now. So please pray for Malibu and for Pepperdine. And then I went on and I became a recruiter and worked internally in HR, and then have also worked in an OD capacity with different workshops and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
lots of kind of different aspects of my life. I love the variety. So you could tell by the work I do, it's like I'm kind of dabbling in a few different areas.
Beautiful. And I think that's part of that entrepreneurial journey, right? It's to really tap into that zone of genius and delegate the rest, outsource the rest, and really spend the time sharing what you do best. And to anyone, and thank you for saying around about the fires. So our prayers are with anyone who, who is being affected by the fires. And if you need help, reach out. But we are hoping that everyone is it's safe,
Yes.
safe and protected.
Yes.
And Angela, so tell us. So I know so you have two small children, right?
I do. A 3 and a 5-year-old.
Okay. So yeah, so you're quite busy. I remember those days. Yeah, we had three kids in 3.5 years. So I actually don't even remember the 4 years.
So blur, right?
It's all a blur, and I was not. I mean, I was blessed with amazing kids, but none of them were sleepers. So on average, we would wake up 8 to 9 times a night. So that's why when my friends sometimes, tell us a story from when they were little, I don't remember. So it was like that survival mode. So I feel like you have so much going on. You launched your business. You're going to be launching your book. You launched your podcast. You have these little humans to take care of. So what do you do to bring a little bit of that balance?
Well, a couple things. One, I've heard on my podcast guests say, like, moms calibrating, and then also harmonizing, which I love those words instead of balance, right?
Yes.
Because it's hard to constantly achieve that balance, so you feel like you're constantly failing. And so it's really about that harmony, and that resonates with me because I only have the same amount of time as everyone else in a day, and I am a high achiever. And so really what I'm doing is just prioritizing my time, delegating out stuff that I know is not in my strengths or my wheelhouse, which is why I'm a strong believer in that, because you can be a lot more efficient when you're working on your passions, right? And things that are fueling you and energizing you. And that's why I'm able to accomplish, like, launching a new book and launching a podcast, because I'm not doing it alone. I have a community of support.
Beautiful.
I have a producer for the podcast. I had a book coach. I outsource a lot of the stuff for the book, so all I'm doing is writing the content, and then I have an editor. And so I do believe that hiring people that have their zones of genius and their strengths really helps you propel forward a lot quicker.
Thank you. Thank you. And yes, I absolutely love what you're saying around the delegation and bringing, the experts. Not only it helps, those small businesses survive and thrive, right? When we're all supporting each other, but also it's not draining the energy because like I know something we talked about at the Dream Plan and Soar event I did just over a week ago, and we talked about the energy vampires and energy angels, but it's really those expanders. So when we are operating in our zone of genius and we do what we love, we're not draining that energy, right? Because we have limited source of time and energy. But at the same time, that passion and that fuel doesn't get depleted with those small tasks that sometimes can really eat up the energy that we might have, especially as you with two little kids who really still require a lot of, I would say, both mental and emotional and physical support and running after them, right? So I love that sometimes as people have their business for much longer, they come to that conclusion, oh my goodness, like I can't do it alone, and they bring the help. So you're actually so brilliant to bring that community of support right from the get-go. So yeah, I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, and another thing to talk about, like the physical, mental, and
Yes.
emotional health, before kind of going into my like recruiting days, I was a transformational life coach, and my dad's a psychologist, and he was coaching me on it. And it was right after I got out of school. And I was teaching people about the 3 pillars of health. And I really live by that, because if you don't have your physical, mental, and emotional health, then you really can't do a lot, right? Like, people don't realize how much they use their legs until they put a cast on one of their legs and they can't walk around. And that's the same with me. With sometimes I get sore at the gym, right? And I'm like moving very slowly because I work too hard. And a lot of times we're taking for granted the things in our body and our health, but then if that goes away, then we really don't have anything else. And so I do focus on all 3 of those pillars. I'm eating right. I'm trying to get as much sleep as possible, as you mentioned, like yesterday, 6 times, not because I wanted to, but because little kids were needing different things throughout the night. So I do take ownership and control of what I have access to. And obviously, not everything is in my control, especially having 2 little humans that depend on me. And so as much as possible, I'm honing in on that health.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And besides, making sure you have enough sleep, and I know sometimes it's out of our control, and also eating right. What are your go-to, maybe like mindfulness practices that you really try to almost see them as your non-negotiable to recharge your batteries?
Well, working out, I strive to work out, move my body every day. Like today, I didn't have a lot of time. I did wake up earlier, but just time got away. And so I got on my Peloton for 20 minutes to at least get
Wow,
a
good
workout.
for you. Yeah.
Which I highly recommend. My friend works at Peloton. I said, you need to target a busy mom, because they don't have a lot of time in their day, but it would be very valuable to like get on a Peloton for 10, 15 minutes. And if it's in your home, it's a lot more convenient, right, than going to the gym. But yeah, squeezing in a workout, moving my body when I can, journaling. I love writing. And so sometimes that's not even just journaling in my notebook. It's sharing something online, like on social media through LinkedIn or Instagram, and just writing helps me get more reflective and slow down.
Yeah.
Reading, listening to a podcast, like anything that provides growth and helps me have a different perspective and shift in my mindset is very beneficial for me, because it helps me look at things, different problems from a new solution.
Yeah. No, beautiful. And thank you for sharing all of it. And what would you say is one of your favorite books you have read for personal growth?
Gosh, there's so many. But I love the book by Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time.
Oh, I read that one. It's amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of it. And then a podcast I'll tell you really quick, and is called The Learning Leader by Ryan Hawk. And exciting news that happened yesterday is I reached out to him, and I have been a huge fan for the last few years listening to his podcast, and he is going to be writing my foreword for my book. And
that's amazing.
I am like so ecstatic, because literally he is someone I have looked up to. I've like reshared his podcast. I've advocated about his podcast because he is so amazing and such a great facilitator. And the way he asks questions to leaders that are on his show is very powerful and thought-provoking. And so I am so privileged and grateful to have him write the foreword.
Wow, what a big news. That is absolutely amazing. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's wow.
Yes,
really,
big
really
win.
Dreams do come true, right? When we're
They do.
Yes.
I feel like I was just, and I just reposted it on my page with Reese Witherspoon. Like, no one's picking up the phone to like make your dreams come true, right? You have to make phone calls. You have to reach out, and I was reaching out to a lot of thought leaders and stuff like that, in the HROD like leadership field, and another woman was like, "Good for you, like like, what does she say? Like, going big, go big or go home. And
Yeah.
I come from a sales background. I was in sales for a decade, so I always believe that it's not no, it's not yet. And
Thank
so
you.
consistently like reaching out and having that follow up. I mean, if you don't try, right, you'll never know. So
That's
I am
right.
a huge believer of putting yourself in the room and reaching out and yeah, making your dreams happen, but like by doing stuff yourself.
Yeah.
Like no one is going to do it for
Yeah.
you. You can have support, right? And you can have coaches and consultants and whatnot, but you have to continually show up on your own and make things
Yeah.
happen.
And thank you. Thank you so much for speaking my language, because this is something we talked about at the event too. It's like, don't leave creating your business or your life by default, but
Mm-hmm.
really designing it, right? And
Yes.
it's like, when sometimes this is kind of you can compare it to when someone says, oh, I want to date, right? Like in this relationship world, and create new relationship, but the person never shows up or never leaves their home. Who's going to be knocking on the door? It's going to be the pizza guy or some Uber Eats, right?
A landscaper, maybe.
Maybe, right? Or maybe, yes, a solicitor of some sort. So it's really being clear, and it really starts with that clarity. What is that goal for you? Was writing a book, and you had probably your hit list of who you are aspiring or inspired by, that you would love to share the forward with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just went for it, right? Like, what is, like I always say, what is the worst that's going to happen? You're just going to be in the same position you were if you didn't ask,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true, right? Like and I think that's a constant reminder for people that I feel like I've always been really bold and impulsive, and I don't think through like, oh, what's going to happen or this or that. I just go for it. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it serves me, sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a no. And to your point, it's like, the way I see it is just that, no, it's not today.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how that person is going to feel tomorrow or a month from now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just
Yeah.
takes a moment. But I think what happened.
I want to mention one thing that you brought up on putting out what you want. Um I I went through a bad breakup, and as I mentioned, my
Yeah,
dad's a psychologist,
I'm
so I
very
sat down
sorry.
with him.
Yeah.
Well, this was a while ago. This was like
Mhm.
8 years ago or something. But my dad was like, it's you're like kind of floundering around. Like, what do you want? And he's like, write it down. Like, write down everything you want in a partner. And so I write down everything. And he's like, and what are you bringing to the table? To be
Mm.
that person that you're looking for. And
Mhm.
that was a huge aha moment because, I'm like, I want all these things, but like, yeah, what am I contributing? How am I bringing value besides
Mhm.
just maybe being like college educated or, having a job or, being fit or whatnot. So it was really diving deep too and being reflective of, okay, I want this. So what do I need to do or be to be able to get it? And
Yeah.
so by doing that, I truly believe I was able to attract the right type of people. And I met my husband. And I look back sometimes on that list I wrote, and I'm like, gosh, you have a lot of the qualities. It's crazy that just by putting it out in the universe,
Yeah.
being intentional. And the reason I was thinking about this is because you're talking about dating, right? And it's
Yeah.
saying yes to opportunity,
Mhm.
but being clear of what opportunities are going to serve you. Because sometimes you could say, and sometimes you don't even know, right? Like sometimes for networking events, I'll be like, do I need to go here? Like, do they have the right audience? But um, sometimes you don't even know who someone else might know. And so just being,
Exactly.
a speaker said recently, like, be up for the relationship. So put down your phone. If you're in a crowded place, just talk to people. Like you could be on a flight traveling somewhere, just talk to your neighbor. Like you have no idea what door is going to open by creating those
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. And it's beautiful what you said, because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, when they go out to networking meetings, they put so much pressure on themselves, right? If they're leading from um, the idea behind, oh, I need to meet 3 potential clients, right? So if you remove that pressure, and I always talk about how can I show up and just make
Mm-hmm.
one connection. And it doesn't have to be that connection for the business, but one real connection that maybe, right, you found someone that shares your passions or loves hats, right? We talked about with my client today about hats, as in the morning I was wearing a turquoise hat. So it's like finding the connection, and then suddenly you have something in common, and then it gets easier. The conversation is naturally flowing. And to your point, you never know who that person knows or is related to, or right? Or at minimum, you just made a new friend.
Mm-hmm.
So when the expectation isn't there, there is no dollar amount attached to it, but it's more about, hey, how can I make a new friend, a new connection today? It removes that pressure and it's easier.
Yeah, and I am a huge believer too. Exactly what you're saying, letting down the barriers and the expectations, and then
Mhm.
also coming from a place of service. Like I'm
Yes.
always like, how can I make this person feel more special or connected or
Yes.
heard, understood? And by doing that, it helps me too, right? It's like a very rewarding feeling. Like there's people that reach out to me a lot, for almost like free business advice, like how do they get a job or different things relating
Yeah.
to career stuff. And I look at their resume, I maybe provide some like feedback or their LinkedIn, something that could help them at least get an interview, certain
Mm-hmm.
questions, just coaching them on how they might be able to get through the interview process more efficiently and effectively. So just different things like that, like always coming from a place of service. And I don't know if that's going to come back around. It's going to be good, but just it makes me feel good. Like I did something good today to help someone out and constantly being in that like helper mode. But not so much that it's like, obviously, because I have limited time, it's like also having clear boundaries on like how
Yes.
much I can provide support.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So just knowing, yeah, to your point, it's like, what are you willing to do? But really coming from that, I would call it that servant leadership, and also adding value, right? So providing value, but
Absolutely.
at the same time, if someone wants more support, you're very clear on what those boundaries are. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yep.
a win-win. I was always thinking about how can we have a win-win here, because I actually do believe in karma. So when I can help someone, eventually, right, it'll come back. So once you kind of realize it, it just gets easier. Like you don't feel like, oh, I'm being taken advantage of, but to your point, really having those, setting those clear boundaries, so you don't feel like, you know, right, like someone is taking advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And like to the karma point, it's like, yeah, what goes around comes around, like good or bad. So constantly trying to be a good person, a good human being, and not holding a tit for tat, like, oh, I
Yeah.
did this and now they owe me.
Yeah.
Like I
No.
never
No.
from that type of place. Like if I do something, if I give something, I'm never thinking I'm getting something in
Yeah.
return. And if I do, hey, like that feels great.
Yes.
But I'm expecting it. And with expectations, I remember reading this book, and when you have like expectations right here and they're not met, instead of just going back to like normal level, you go like even further down to like depression. Like so it's even worse to set an expectation and not achieve it,
Yeah.
which usually you to go into situations with no expectations and more intentions, like you mentioned, like having
Yeah.
one person that you connect with
That's
and it's
it.
more broad. And that fills your soul probably because you get a deeper connection. You're not walking away like, oh, I didn't meet my goal. You feel like a failure. Like it's just a super easy, attainable goal, but it's also very effective.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, in my life coaching program, I had this brilliant mentor, and she always said, whenever you can really detach yourself from the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to be so empowered, but always leading through that lens of how can I make that other person feel special and add value? But that detaching yourself from that outcome just minimizes the feeling of whether it's failure, right? Like we're humans and we can get emotional. But yeah, once you really detach yourself and then understanding, and this is when we talk about reprogramming of our mind, is when you actually see, because I do believe that universe always has our back. And if we can, at times I do believe in inspired action, but when we know, you know what, every rejection, it's redirection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it
Mm-hmm.
provides us, maybe, you know what, it didn't work out because maybe we just have more work to do, right?
Yes. Yeah. I wrote a collaborative book this year called Taking the
Yes,
Plunge, and my chapter is all about that, is like really leaning into the process, and trusting it,
yes,
because there has been times, whether it be for grad school, like I didn't get in right away, but not giving up because I knew like that was the room I needed to be in, that was the experience and education I needed.
yeah,
But yeah, there's been I mean, I've applied to hundreds of jobs and not gotten a call back, or been second up and been like, oh, you just don't have enough experience, or you have too much experience. So it's like you can't give up. And I
no,
totally believe that, like you said, rejection is redirection, and everything has happened for a reason. And I'm in the position I'm in now because of all of those moments along the way. And it
yes.
really goes back to your point. It's detaching from the outcome and really just enjoying the journey, the ride that we're on, which is never ending. You don't want it to stop, because if the ride stops, then that might mean you're
That's
dead,
it,
right? You
right?
want to continue learning and growing and just up leveling every single day, every single year.
Yes, yes. And when, yes, in the beginning, like I remember when we started our business, you know, no one really teaches you that, right? At school. It's like really that inner work that you need to do and be patient and show yourself grace and still show up after the rejections, but knowing they are redirections. And now, what I even um, tell myself, it's almost like my affirmation, and I'll share it with you, Angela. It's like, because universe, everything that it's happening. So let's say I hear a no, it's because good, better, or best, it's on its way to me,
Love it.
right? So once you do it and you repeat it, like you kind of brainwash yourself in most beautiful, empowering way. So now it's, yes, I put myself out there. Sure, at times it's not comfortable, but I do it afraid. I do it brave. I do it with courage, because I remind myself of my mission and my purpose to serve these beautiful women and men. I have some men clients to really create, you know, beautiful and empowering businesses and lives. Because I think us as humans, because no one teaches, well, the normal educational system doesn't really teach how you go, you know, it's really, we are all geniuses in our own ways, right?
Mhm.
How we have those beautiful superpowers, but we're so focused on, oh, what else I need to do to grow, what else, right? Versus it actually, if we focus on our gifts and we can outsource and delegate the rest, magic can really happen.
Oh yeah.
And remind, right, reminding ourselves, even if it's hard. And like, I wish someone in the past has told me that, oh, it's absolutely normal to not be comfortable when you're trying something new, right?
Yeah.
Ver- yeah,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think to anything that you start for the first time, is going to be uncomfortable and scary. But the more you do it, like you said, the more practice you put in, the easier it's going to become. And so maybe those no's seem really scary, but then you get enough. And then, like you said, it's like yes or better. Like you start to recognize, like, okay, I didn't want that person taking up my time anyways. And like, look at all of this space that's provided. From a going back to like dating and stuff, there was someone years ago, like a friend that was dating someone, and she's like, yeah, but I don't know if I'll find anyone better and this and that. And I said, if you don't close one door and open another and create that space, yeah, you probably won't, because you're so consumed with this other relationship that's toxic that it's hard to be able to see like
Yes.
what's on the other side. So I think it is important to create that space, and also the awareness, like you said, of just because it's a no doesn't mean there's anything wrong with
Yes.
you. It's it's just like, and I think people sometimes take that so personally. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with you. Just take you out of it. Just continue moving forward, learn from it. What could you have done better? What could and then like take a few minutes to reflect and then move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true. And I'm smiling because, and you would know this because you actually did sales, and I did sales for many, many years. And it's a formula. So right? Sometimes what I hear is, or, we work with a client and they're like, yeah, we're not seeing any sales. And it's like, okay, how many people you reached out to? And it's like, oh, it's one or two. It's like, oh my gosh, then your close rate would have to be 100%,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So we know the formula. Like I remember, I actually at one point in my career, I moved to Florida, and I was a sales manager for this computer and IT company. And I remember, like, part of the quota was you had to make 40 calls,
Mm-hmm.
because you knew there will be probably one or two, right,
Yes,
that would say
absolutely.
yes. And
Absolutely.
you
It's all
become
about,
resilient.
it's like, and even for like recruiting, it's like we need to get the quantity to be able to get the quality. And
Yes.
so if we don't have like, if we're not reaching out to at least like, 50 to 100 people, in a couple days, then you're not going to get those quality gems that you're going to find, or those people that are responding. And so it is all about, and I had the same thing, right? And the reason they have those sales quotas and those reach outs, it's because exactly what you said. Like, you're not going to get it on your first try. I mean, if you do, that's very fortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, having 50 calls, continuing to do that, the consistency to continue to reach out to people, to follow up. I mean, there was some sales stat, and this was years ago, so it's probably changed, but you had to have, I think, like 11 to 12 connections with someone for them to, before they even
Yes.
made the sale. And
Mm-hmm.
so for people to think like one and done is going to happen is just, it's like setting yourself up for failure. Like
Yes.
you're setting that expectation that's not realistic, and then you're getting down about it, but it's not a realistic
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because now I just say, and something when I did, it was the Unleash Your Potential Within with Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
And he always said, be very mindful what words you attach um, to different meaning. So when something, right, like someone would see something as a failure, or when they receive a no, it's almost like now, it's like, what word do you give it? Is this like, that's unfortunate, or, oh, that was silly, right? Oh, that was a silly no. So don't give it so much meaning,
And
and don't,
power. Yeah.
right? And power, just like to your point, it's like if someone needs a minimum 12 connections, and the expectations, and this is where, like, detach yourself from outcome and the expectations, just keep showing up, keep being brave, embrace being uncomfortable, because that's where that true growth happens, and you just get better at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the more uncomfortable you get, like the more you're learning. And
Yes.
I think it's important to learn every day. Be 1%
Amazing.
better.
Exactly. All right. So, Angela, how if someone wanted, some expertise, or get in touch with you, especially when it comes to HR and building the teams, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, they can definitely message me here on Instagram at Tait, Tait underscore consulting. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm just Angela Tait it's like linkedin.com, like / I think it is Angela Tait.
Beautiful.
LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of my time, but I'm also on Instagram periodically as well. So those are probably the best. And then we can figure out a coffee chat or how to talk further.
Amazing. And I will see you on your podcast very soon.
Yes, I'm excited for that. And I love the conversation. Thank you for starting my day. It's still somewhat early here. It's 9:36. So appreciate starting my morning with a great conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome. No, I thank you. Thank you for your time, for your beautiful energy and sharing your wisdom with us. And yeah, wishing you an empowered Wednesday. And thank you very much for everyone who joined us today. And wishing you all a beautiful day full of inspiration and positivity.
Yay.
Have a great
Bye.
one. Bye bye. Thank you.